The Supreme Court today suggested an out-of-court settlement for the Ram Temple issue, saying it was inclined to step in only if it couldn't be resolved through talks. The Chief Justice of India offering himself as a mediator if needed. The observations of the court were welcomed by the BJP and also many prominent Hindu and Muslim figures, but others have questioned the suggestion for talks, saying that it's already been tried many times and has failed.
Is an out-of-court settlement the only way out for the Ram Janmabhoomi Babri Masjid issue? The Chief Justice of India certainly seems to think so.
In court, he said, Ayodhya is a sensitive, sentimental issue that should be sorted outside court through discussion. Justice J.S. Keher offered to mediate himself. The top court said it would step in only if the matter can't be resolved through talks.
The Ram Mandir issue has been pending in various courts for the last 7 decades. Now, the top court wants the issue to be solved through negotiations as it involves religious faith.
In Ayodhya, the temple town at the epicenter of the dispute, where in 1992 hundreds of car sevaks brought down the 16th century mosque with claims that it was the birthplace of Lord Ram. The court's observations are welcomed.
न्यायालय का हम लोग सम्मान करते हैं, परंतु अब विचार किससे किया जाए? यानी मुसलमान तो कभी ये नहीं चाहेगा कि वहाँ मंदिर बने।
मैं बात करने के लिए हमेशा तैयार हूँ, हमारी कौम तैयार है, हम लोग भी तैयार हो। ये मसला हल हो जाए तो इससे बड़ी बात और कुछ है ही नहीं।
At this sprawling Ram Janmabhoomi workshop, where stones are being carved since 1992 in anticipation of the temple construction, they say finally there may be a way out.
कोर्ट तो कह रहे हैं लोग आपस में बात करके ही सुलझा लें।
हाँ तो वो तो है ही, लेकिन जब दो पक्ष वाले मानेंगे तब तो।
But others involved in the case aren't as optimistic.
For the last about 31 years, several times at the highest level. Therefore, if the Honorable Chief Justice intervenes, definitely we have confidence upon the Honorable Chief Justice and upon his nominated judges. But no private negotiations are possible.
The Supreme Court's observations have come at a time when the BJP has put its hardliner Gorakhpur MP Yogi Adityanath as in charge of Uttar Pradesh after a massive electoral victory. Yogi has consistently maintained that building the Ram temple here in Ayodhya is a big commitment for himself and the party.
बहुत ठोस फैसला दिया है, हम उसका स्वागत करते हैं। सरकार से जो सहयोग लोग चाहेंगे, हम लोग उसमें सहयोग करेंगे।
देखिए, बातचीत के जरिए हल नहीं निकला, तभी तो गया कोर्ट पे।
The question is, can the Ayodhya issue be solved amicably, or is a court judgment the only way out? With Arunachalam Vaidyanathan, Pramod Srivastav and Alok Pandey, Amitabh Revi, NDTV.
So is an out-of-court settlement the best way, or should the court indeed have pronounced a verdict on this? Senior Supreme Court advocate Dushyant Dave joins us on the program tonight. Sabha Naqvi, senior journalist and author, is with us. Sambit Patra of the BJP, Jaiveer Shergill of the Congress Party, and Mr. Kamal Farooqi of the Muslim Personal Law Board also with us tonight. Mr. Dave, let me ask you first, were you surprised by the Supreme Court's observations today and its decision? Because it has been 7 years, almost 7 years, since the High Court order came, the Allahabad High Court order came on this. And, you know, in a sense, the Supreme Court said today something it could have said on day one, which is that it's not something for the courts to mediate on, but for you all to sort out outside.
Nidhi, before I answer that, let's understand one thing on this debate, all of us, that this is an extremely sensitive issue and it is highly emotive. We have to respect, you know, every viewpoint, the viewpoint of the majority community, the viewpoint of the minority community, and of course the legal position about the matter. Now, having said that, let me say one thing, that Chief Justice's, you know, utterances today really have surprised me. I don't think Chief Justice was at all justified. These are not the observations of the Supreme Court. Let's understand one thing. Dr. Subramaniam Swamy, who is a good friend of mine, I regard him well, he mentioned the matter. Although you must realize he is not a party to the real proceedings which are pending before the Supreme Court. He has moved an application for intervention. I am not sure whether it is allowed or not. The parties who are really affected by this were not given notice of this mentioning today, and nobody was present. So this request was made because the Chief Justice has power to fix the date for the hearing before appropriate bench. So the Chief Justice's bench today was not hearing the matter. These are therefore not the observations of the Supreme Court. That must be clearly understood by the nation. And I feel that Chief Justice should have really stayed out of this matter, because this is a political matter. It is politico-legal matter, yes, but in more than one sense this is a political issue, and I don't think it was really fair on the part of the Chief Justice to have really dabbled into it, because he was not in session of the matter. If the matter comes up before him on judicial side, certainly he has a right to make observations if he wanted to make observations when all parties were present. So I don't think this should really have generated the kind of debate which it has generated almost on every media channel since 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and the government has naturally seized upon the opportunity in this regard. So to my mind, these observations really are unfortunate.
The reason it's a big story is because this is such a long-standing, festering dispute. It actually goes back centuries, not even decades. And, what happened on December 6th is something that has defined our politics pretty much till today. And I want to ask you, though, that as you said, this is something that is a political matter. Even if it is a political matter, do you believe that it would have been, or it is best for the courts to resolve it once and for all, since the parties who have been trying to negotiate for years now haven't really been able to come to any settlement? Or do you believe that it's still possible to talk out of court and reach some kind of agreement?
Look, I will tell you something which is very disturbing. Just 2 weeks ago, Supreme Court, in a related matter arising out of Babri Masjid demolition, has questioned CBI about not prosecuting certain accused. Now, on the one side, judicial side, Supreme Court is wanting a prosecution to proceed. On the other side, Chief Justice suggests an out-of-court settlement. So is the Supreme Court going to pardon all these people who are accused of having, indulged in demolition of the Babri Mosque? So this really was unacceptable. Now, having said that, let me tell you one thing. This is political in the sense that BJP in its election manifesto for 2014 had expressly, included this as part of its manifesto. And they had said themselves, I'll read this, BJP reiterates its stand to explore all possibilities within the framework of the Constitution to facilitate construction of Ram Temple in Ayodhya. Chief Justice should have perhaps remembered that this is therefore a very large issue affecting, political scene in the country, and BJP has a right to raise this issue. Nobody says no. But all parties must be present. All parties must strive an out-of-court settlement. This suggestion by the court, by the Chief Justice, who is really holding a constitutional position, is really absolutely, I would say, unfortunate again.
Okay, pretty strong words from you there, Mr. Dave, on the Chief Justice himself. Sambit Patra, you were listening to what Mr. Dave was saying. How do you look at his comments today on whether it was appropriate for the Chief Justice to have made these observations? And Sambit, honestly, do you believe that any out-of-court settlement is realistically going to work today when it hasn't until now? What has changed now, except that you have a huge majority in UP and at the centre?
First, unlike Mr. Dave, whom I respect a great deal, but I don't concur in this case, I would not say that what the Chief Justice said today was unfortunate. Sensitivity, sensibilities, and amicable solution, these are not unfortunate words. These are extremely fortunate words coming from one of the most learned personalities of the country, the Chief Justice of this country, Justice Kehar himself. And remember, it was not a single justice bench. There were 3 justices present. Justice Chandrachud was present. Justice Kaul was present. At one point of time, the Chief Justice of India even referred to Justice Kaul, pointing towards him, saying, my brother, it's not younger brother, my brother can also mediate. I can also mediate. I mean, for the first time in the history of the judicial history of the country, that the Chief Justice and other justices of the court have tried their best to mediate an issue which is an issue of millions of Indians. And remember, when Mr. Dave says that the Ram Mandir issue is just a political issue, I disagree with him. Well, first and foremost, it is not just a title suit or a political issue. It is an issue of faith, and the Supreme Court caught the right words to that end. In the sense, the Supreme Court has emphasized on 3 words. It's a sensitive issue, it is a sentimental issue, what we call an issue of faith, and they said since it's a sensitive and sentimental issue, that is why the aggrieved party should try their best to amicably settle it. Remember, Justice Keher must be thinking, I should take this liberty in personally saying that Justice Keher must be thinking that an issue of such importance which rests the faith of millions of Indians, rather than fighting within the precincts of law, let the universal consciousness come together, the whole country come together in a way which is amicable, which is brotherly, and let them solve it.
But may
so
I
that when
ask
history is written tomorrow.
May I ask that, certainly that is an option, but you know, the Supreme Court has been hearing this matter, as I said, for nearly 7 years after the High Court verdict. So should that universal consciousness and coming together and brotherhood perhaps have been thought of, you know, 7 years ago? Because now, I mean, I'm asking you my original question, which is, what has fundamentally changed, do you think, today to allow an amicable settlement? Politically, what I see is that you have a very strong BJP government in power, both at the centre and in UP, which is a significant change from 7 years ago.
See, there's no doubt that we have a very strong government in the centre and we have gotten exceptional verdict in Uttar Pradesh. But I don't think the Supreme Court judges read from the verdict and deliver according to the electoral verdict of this country. And I would very humbly submit as to why the Supreme Court took a call today. I would not know. The justices themselves would be able to answer this question of yours, but I believe that amongst all the panelists who are participating in your show tonight or other shows tonight, the collective wisdom of ours is less compared to the collective wisdom of the judges of Supreme Court, and that is why they are justices and we are panelists. But what I wanted to put over here emphatically, that this is not a political issue. This is an article of faith. And secondly, those people who are saying that they don't want this to be settled outside the precincts of the court and it should be settled within the court, remember, some of them even have gone to the extent of saying that in case of triple talaq, they want an out-of-court settlement, and since triple talaq is an issue of faith, the court should not in fact be verdicting on that case. So how can you contradict both the cases?
Okay, so let me
Ram
take that
temple is a matter of faith.
Let me take that to Mr. Kamal Farooqi. Mr. Farooqi, many members of the Muslim Personal Law Board today have come out and said, including Mr. Jilani, that they don't think an out-of-court settlement is possible. Why do you think that that's not possible?
Basically, I respectfully say to my friend Sampad that it is a political issue now, and if at all the parties who are involved into it, and if the BJP is really interested in settling down the whole thing. As far as Muslim Personal Law Board is concerned, we have in the past also, we have tried 3 times to go in for this, and there was serious discussion, but it was not us who have withdrawn from the deliberations. It was the other parties who have withdrawn, and rather some acrimonious thing had happened for them only, not for us. So what I am trying to tell you, even at this time of time, basically it's a title suit case what is happening in the Supreme Court, and this what Dave Saab said is, while respecting him fully, yes, it's a these two are the separate cases. As far as one is the criminology of the whole thing, which will be dealt with separately, it has nothing to do with the title suit. As far as the title suit is concerned between the two brothers, we have not been in a position to sort it out. If it is possible with the indulgence of Honorable Supreme Court, and if it's a fair kind of judgment, as far as we are concerned, we'll definitely take it up very positively, and next month we are going to have a meeting of Muslim Personal Law Board, wherein if there is any positive sign from all sides, we can discuss it at length. We have no problem.
But you're skeptical.
No, I'm not skeptical. Why should I be skeptical?
You're willing to give it a chance.
Ultimately, it has to resolve.
And do you welcome the Chief Justice then offering himself as a mediator?
But what Mr. Dave said, this is also to be seen. And let me tell you a very practical part of the whole thing. The proceedings in the Supreme Court have not yet started even, because there is voluminous of the documents. It has not been translated as yet. And Dr. Subramanian Swamy, he has been raising all those issues for quite a long time. But basically he is not the party. So it is a sudden outburst, and I do not know how come it has come out. But as a positive thinker, if there is a settlement, we welcome it.
So Jaiveer, how does the Congress look at this? Because there was a very cautious reaction from your party on this. You're a lawyer yourself. How do you look at Mr. Dave's comments in particular on the Chief Justice's observations today? And do you believe that this can be settled out of court?
Nidhi, first things first, I think the Indian National Congress welcomes the observations of the Chief Justice of India for out-of-court amicable settlement, and we appeal to both sides to adhere to the supreme advice of the Supreme Court. Now, you have a very interesting question in the beginning of the show, that is out of court settlement only way to solve the issue of Ram Mandir. Now, Supreme Court has given a very clear choice. Nobody can shy away from the fact we need a closure. Supreme Court has given a choice whether you need a closure by consensus or contest. That is the option now we have to pick, and the deadline is 31st March. Now, Supreme Court maybe has a sense, or the Chief Justice, that if it's a closure by consensus, it will have a much longer shelf life. It will be very well for a long-term harmony. And the fact that the Chief Justice have himself offered to sit in a mediation sends a larger message to the degree of his urgency to solve the dispute. Now, Nidhi, now, you know, we are, let's not fall trapped to the legal jargons and on the procedural aspects. 9 times the settlement or mediation talks have failed, 9 times. But that failure of 9 times should not be a deterrent not to try it for the 10th time. 23rd September 2010, a petition was filed in the Supreme Court seeking out-of-court settlement. At that time, Supreme Court dismissed that petition. But today, again, Supreme Court has given a golden chance to both the sides to come together, because maybe the Supreme Court wants to test the intention. Supreme Court wants a win-win situation for both sides. Being a lawyer, and Mr. Dave can correct me, the basic rule of mediation is both the sides should go home happy. There should not be a victory or a loss scenario, a win-win situation. Mine, and I say with a lot of hesitation, once the Supreme Court verdict is out, one side will win or lose. Again, fingers will be pointed. Somebody was biased. They did not ask us. It's an issue of faith. It was not a legal issue. So let's avoid putting Supreme Court in the spot, our society in a spot, and go ahead. So it's a win-win situation for all sides.
Sabah, do you believe, though, that if the Supreme Court had pronounced a verdict and does pronounce a verdict, whichever way it is, that ultimately, whichever side it is, and no matter how sensitive the issue is, would have had to come around? If you look at the Allahabad High Court verdict, I think the Allahabad High Court, in a sense, was also trying to please everybody in the way that it divided the land, and yet nobody was actually pleased. Sabah, what do you think? Do you believe an out-of-court settlement is still possible?
Nidhi, right in the beginning of the show, you raised the question, what has changed? I want to address that. I'll tell you what has changed very much is that I am firmly of the opinion that Indian Muslims should not be in the position where they look churlish, where they become the pole of people who will attack them. The Ram Mandir issue has played out for a long time. I think this is the time, but nobody is going to listen to me, because you have groups like the Law Board, unelected groups who are party to all of this. Nobody is going to listen to liberal voices like mine. They are going to fight tooth and nail and make the community push the community even deeper into the ghetto. I think this is the time to make a generous gesture, to let it go. These are not issues that Muslims need to engage with. For God's sake, let it go. And I have had hundreds of messages on social media, on Twitter, by Muslims saying, "Bhai, let us cooperate, build a Ram temple." A lot of things have changed, and a lot of things have changed. This kind of force with which the Bharatiya Janata Party is in power, it is not a question of cowardice, it is a question of different tactics. You need to survive. Don't dhakelo a whole lot of millions of people who are illiterate and simple into your battles. And it is, I have been to Ayodhya multiple times. Let's face it, nobody is saying namaz at the Babri, at the spot, whereas people are going and worshipping at the Ram temple. We can debate that there was an illegal act in the beginning. I'm not even going there. Look at us now. What do we need? Do we need debates on Ram temple? For God's sake, So be generous, be larger, understand strategy, understand largeness. Don't just keep fighting in your little ghetto and speaking to each other. It is my appeal, and I believe this firmly. I firmly believe what I'm saying right now. There is no two ways about it.